Masters of Modern. I am your host, Alex Kessler, here with no co-host. It's just me, but really, I'm with Ben and past Alex. So today's going to be an interesting episode. It's something we were talking about doing for a while, of like rewatching an old episode as kind of like a commentary on what that episode was about. Today we're going to be rewatching our original Modern Horizons reprint speculation. We've now had 2 Modern Horizons sets. This is before we knew anything about what was going to be in it. We're going to be talking about Forcible and Counterspell and Days and some other things. So it's going to be really interesting. I'll pause it and play it as things go. If I have anything I want to comment on, or maybe I'll turn the volume down. We'll see how this works. If this is something, this is a little bit more of an experimental episode, so definitely let me know if this is something that y'all liked. If you didn't, also open to comments on that. Just be kind. Just for scheduling conflicts this week, we ended up filming an episode of I Hate Your Deck that's going to eventually come out during the time we normally record, and then just like because Ben was traveling last week, we couldn't reschedule it. So we're doing this. I'm doing it on my own. I'm doing it live, pre-recorded. Thanks to our editors, Rick and Marshall, for all the help they give and making sure that this podcast looks the best it possibly can as it goes forward. Really quickly before we do that, thanks to our sponsors, TCG Player. Basically, there's a link below. If you click on that link, it will let them know that we sent you. It costs you nothing. Literally, if you click on the link, you don't have to buy anything right now. If you just click on the link, at some point, if you buy something on TCG Player, as long as you don't click on some other creator's link and you were signed in, it'll remember that you clicked on it from us. So it's really helpful if you can click on it. They get you really good prices. It's really easy to work with because it's a huge marketplace. You get access to all different types of cards whenever you want to find them. It's where I buy all of my cards, literally. So definitely check them out. Even customer service is really great. I ran into a whole problem with the retailer. They totally helped out. It was a great experience. So I definitely recommend TCG Player regardless. And if you click on the link below, it's super helpful. And then also thank you to our patrons. If you check our patron down below, you get the episodes out a week early in audio format with a bunch of extra content. We do like a whole normally 5 to 10 minute bonus kind of mini-sode at the beginning talking about non-Magic stuff that me and Ben are into. That ranges everything from topics from Marvel shows to whatever movies or video games we're playing. So definitely recommend that. And yeah, those are, I guess check out Battle Bosses. Go to battlebosses.com. It's the game I made. It's a board game that's coming out this September. Finally, we kickstarted it 2 years ago. Do all of the stuff that's been happening in the world. It's been taking a while to get there, but now it's coming out. There's a bunch of cool content. You can follow it on Twitter, Instagram, or whatever. But if you check out battlebosses.com as stuff gets updated there, it's really cool. All right, let's get into the episode. We were watching the Masters of Modern Horizons speculation episode 207. For reference, we're on like 3 something. Ben Bayman and our producer, Marshall James.
What's up? What's up, everybody? We're here. We're back. I hope the sound in here is pleasing to you. It's pleasing to me.
Should be better.
Yeah.
Right. So it's echoier. You might notice that we are either in a smaller sounding space for those people that are audio only, or in a smaller physical space for people watching on live video or in recorded, edited video. And that is because this is the beginnings of our new space. You can't tell, but on the right-hand side, on the lines, you can see screws still in the wall. I have a way better sunglasses now. And those are the drywall that we're building out. So we will have a better, more intimate space that hopefully the sound will sound better in general. There's going to be foam on the walls, carpet, but it also makes it so it's a little bit tighter. So we're a little bit more intimate, but that's happening. New, big, exciting things.
And there'll be more of those big changes.
Sam's going to have a desk that he can store stuff in, like business cards.
I'm excited about it.
I don't even know where your business cards are.
Nobody knows where I have them in my house. Yes, but that is the exciting difference.
He never used that desk. I'm not joking. We gave him a desk, bookshelves. I don't even know if he stored his business cards there. I think they're on a different random bookshelf in the office.
Difference between what you guys are seeing today and what you've seen in the past. Alex and I have a ton of cool stuff coming up today on the show. We're going to be talking about some of the big decks over the weekend, i.e. they're all Is It Phoenix, as well as some other big decks. We're going to be breaking that down. There is a flurry of ban talk, which there is going to be every single week as long as there's a good deck in the format, so we'll address some of that. And the main topic.
That's never changed. This is the beginning. So this came out right around War of the Spark, I believe. So it's like peak right before the like most ban heavy era of Magic.
For today is that we're going to be talking about Modern Horizons predictions officially. Today on the episode, we're going to be having a whole conversation about the cards we think are going to show up. This is a big episode for Alex because in general, he's really, really, really good at called shots. No pressure.
Let's see how I did. Thank you, Ben, for setting that up. I'll probably skip over some of the deck stuff in a second, but oh God, the pressure.
Wow. Now I'm bad at it. You ruined that. How's day 2 feel?
I like all the arc-like phoenixes everywhere because I shot called how good that is.
Is me winning.
That's so sweet. So that's like me in total control. I manipulated you into that.
I feel like it's me in total control. I've stolen your thunder.
You manipulated me into winning and doing
great.
well.
That's because I'm here to support you, Ben. You manipulating me is me failing at shot calling. Me manipulating you is you winning because I'm the better person.
You guys.
Oh, for context, basically I made a bet with Ben that he had to play with a real modern deck. So he played, I believe, with Phoenix. I believe, yes. And he had his best modern Grand Prix finish ever. And it's because he played with the real deck instead of a Crazy Brew. Now, obviously, Crazy Brews are more fun, but it was a fun little victory to me. Because Ben is a very good player. He just is also a hipster, as am I.
You can find me at Ben Bateman Media if you'd like.
I'm at Kess Wiley.
Yeah.
And this is at the MMcast on Twitter, Instagram, pretty much everywhere. We're the same. We made that consistent.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the winning percentages. The day 2 meta game from Bilbao, Tampa Bay. I just said Tampa Bay. I don't know why I said it like that. And Philly this last weekend. Is It Phoenix showed up in 21.35%. Humans with 7.65%.
That was me whistling in the future.
6.5%. Burn 6.23%.
That's an interesting metagame breakdown. That's like a cool little window. I mean, Is It Phoenix obviously was really strong. What's interesting is like this happened, then Modern Horizons 2 came out, and eventually they banned Faithless Looting, and Nick Prince still has a $2 bill in victory of me betting that it wouldn't get banned for a year, and it got banned literally within 24 hours. But Grixis Death Shadow is still a thing. Blue White Control's back. Affinity's gone. War Prison is obviously changed to Urza decks. Red Green Valakut Titan Shift is still strong. Spirits is basically gone. Green Black Rock decks or Jund is around in whatever version. Dredge has definitely kind of come and gone. Different burn decks. Tron, Humans. Wow.
Great Twitter thread. Check it out. But the main point is that it's hard to beat. The other thing is we don't get day 1 percentages at GPs. Wizards doesn't like that information.
Right.
So something to really be aware of is that, like, yes, it had 21% of the day 2, but what was that conversion rate? What percentage was Phoenix in day 1?
Like, did everyone just play the deck?
And something like Modern is expensive, and so the decks that are going to be best at beating Phoenix are expensive to put together. The thing about Phoenix is other than the lands, which every Splinter Twin player in the country has had no use for the last 4 years, but has had, and the Phoenixes themselves, the deck is really inexpensive.
You can 4 Scalding Tarns, if you get played ones, you're getting for about $300. 4 Phoenixes, you're getting for less than $200. So like pretty much the base of the deck is like $400 to $500. And I think the rest of the deck is
it hasn't drastically changed. It's interesting how that stayed the same.
Maybe the canals, the Spirebluff canals are probably like $8 each. Thinking the ices are maybe $15.
The Spirebluff canals are going down because they're in the new Challenger decks.
This deck is probably $650 if you just buy the thing outright. I'm not totally sure. I think the Phoenix deck, only the off-color blue ones, you can play any of them. I think it might be like the Wilderness Reclamation deck, the like teaching Sultai deck.
I'm going to put money down on our later subject of the day being the reason. I think it's Modern Horizons. I think like all of the cards that people are most excited being reprinted into that set are things that could make Sultai better. And so all of these shops are just like, why waste time, Misty Rainforest? If they do half of these, Misty Rainforest will be this expensive, and we might as well just put it that price.
I think it's a totally fair point. And I mean, the sad thing for me is that of the 40 fetch lands that you should own if you're like a player who wants to play Modern, I think I'm short like 7, and 3 of them are Scalding Tarns and 3 of them are Misties.
He has since sold all of those cards to buy a guitar. It's a really cool guitar, and he's now going on tour. Also, there's a link below to go buy tickets for Ben's tour. It is dope. He's a very talented musician. I also think it's interesting that, like, at this point, Misty Rainforest, like, maybe was, like, weird because the blue-green deck specifically wasn't very strong, and then immediately the most powerful blue-green cards of all time were reprinted in a lot. as we all know, blue-green is now the most supported powerful color combo.
Such a bummer. Like, I'm missing like one Arid Mesa, one Verdant Catacombs, and then like those. And otherwise I have play sets of all of them. But actually, there will be relevance to and excitement to talk about at some point, but not right now.
Not today. Not today, Ben.
So
you put your Highlander back in your Grimoire and lunchbox and
I was
take
quick
it to
about
Hong
it. I was quick about it. So beyond Is It Phoenix, which we talked about pretty
With
extensively.
these glasses on, that was.
Yeah, it was an ill. It was, yeah. It
Well, I put them on for Tampa because they're Florida themed in the fact that they're bright and colorful.
I missed that.
These sunglasses
When I
are
said Tampa Bay.
still Florida themed. They got little palm trees on them. Okay, all right. Past Alex.
Yeah, I put them on.
Miami, Alex.
The reason I said it like that was because I don't actually know how to say Bilbao, and I said Bilbao, like Bilbo
Oh, I remember this conversation.
Baggins, and then I was like Tampa Bay. All right, we're off the rails.
Everything is terrible for me.
So back to the winning percentages of decks. Just anything else that sticks out to you here, really
Just
particularly.
real quick, you guys are glossing over how incredibly expensive surgical extraction is.
Oh yeah, surgicals are like
$65 card.
Well, but that was true now.
Oh, interesting. Marshall, this is back in the day when Marshall was in the room with us as a live producer, which is a totally different world.
Because this deck is good.
surgical doubled, huh?
Yeah.
Surgical was 30 when I played that tournament 2 weeks ago.
Well, it turns out I think the most recent tournaments have really just shown how insane free spells are, whether they be gut shot or surgical
I
extraction.
jokingly tweeted today, ban
Metamorphose?
surgical extraction.
Oh.
It's been, people have responded to it in funny ways.
Oh, yeah. That's so weird. I bet, interesting. I wonder how good surgical extraction is right now. It definitely falls in and out of favor, but it's still probably a good... If it's not $60 right now, I would recommend picking that card up for sure.
Well,
I don't think you should. but,
Okay, so I think the rest of the stuff on here are pretty known quantity decks. The only other one on here that really jumps out at me is a deck that I know is showing up more, and you did actually see Sam Black playing a Lantern Control deck, which is not that far from the War Prison deck, and War Prison shows up here over 3%. So a lot of people were piloting War Prison.
Well, so this was actually something I wanted to bring up. The thing that I think is more important to realize is that a Valakut deck has shown up in the top 8 of every single Modern tournament since KCI was banned. Same as one War Prison deck. Like both of them are, and maybe not every single one, that might be a little facetious, but both have shown up. I think these decks are both very difficult to play. They're a card suite that most people aren't putting together.
Can I say facetious? Facetious. There we go. I got it. I can say it now. I failed the first try, though.
But they're performing against both Dredge and Is It Phoenix in ways that are, to me, feel like they are really well positioned right now. And it's just that because of the difficulty of playing those decks, they aren't showing up in the same numbers. And because of the problem I described before, where pretty much everyone has an Is It Phoenix decks, most of the cards in Red-Green Titan Shift are weird. Like, not everyone has a playset of all 12 red-green, mountain forests.
I've played against Titan Shift enough times in my life. Like I know, and I especially know the older iterations of that deck. Like the newer one I haven't played against as much.
Field of the Dead had not been printed nor banned yet. So many powerful cards have come out in the last 2 years.
What makes it so good against the super?
Actually, what year did this come out? This was March 22nd, 2019. So War of the Spark hasn't even come out yet. Wow. Okay.
Super fast, sort of non-fair Magic, Is It in Dredge? Like, why is it so good against those?
I think because the ways that Is It stops people from doing stuff, Titan Shift just kind of goes around, shifting in a Primeval Titan. So getting 4 lands, doing 6 damage trample, and then Valcutting them to death.
And it's good luck with your lightning bolt.
Right. I think that it goes over those decks, and that's just how it goes around them. It's not just Titan Shift, so it's Titan Shift and Amulet, and both of them have the ability to just I'm going to win kind of this in a similar turn that Dredge and Is It Phoenix decks are going to win, but I'm going to go over what you're doing in such a larger way that you don't have a way to stop me. And I have, there are a ton of red-green ways to stop both of those decks that you can side into that the reverse isn't true.
That's interesting. So I think the rest of the stuff on here, really for the most part...
Having not played the deck at all, so I could be wrong, and I'd love if someone wants to tweet at us or message us,
you have
has
played
experience with Titan Shift. And
Did we used to record multicam, or did Marshall used to cut in to us to get close-ups of ourselves when we were having long points? That's fascinating.
Oh, you have played Titan Shift.
I have never played... I played Titan Shift. I've never played Amulet.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I have no idea. the in and out of Amulet. It's powerful and it's dope, but I have no idea.
I played against Amulet a lot at one point. I can't remember when. One tournament, I was piloting some shenanigans, and like one of the guys I was testing with had that. It's good and it's powerful what they're doing. They are super reliant on Azusa, like incredibly, and Azusa is very fragile.
This is not just the
That's
best
not
deck
true.
in the
They have other
format.
cards in the deck that-
No, I know. I'm saying like for
Well,
instance,
not the best deck, but
as a
obviously
Phoenix
has
player,
been very consistently
if
good.
you just bolt their Azusa, it's pretty likely that they don't win. Like there's other things you want to be doing, but like you're pretty fast. So unless you have a really slow hand or they have a lot of redundancy, that's the most important card I think to get rid of.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, Amulet is impossible for you to interact with.
Yes,
Like, if
yes,
they have an
yes,
Amulet in play, then,
is true.
and you like...
And now you can tutor for it with her as a Saga.
And I think both of those decks are also decks that have big Haymaker turns. I think that's something also that's really important in this format in general, is you cannot do anything and you're just slowly building yourself into a position in a hard to interact with way, like by playing just more lands or like ramp spells. And then on one big turn, you play everything at once and you just win. And that's like Scapeshift does that. Scapeshift is like, I'm going to stop you from doing yourself a little bit, then cast a Scapeshift and dome you for 18.
So what's interesting about why I think, well, they've kind of become one deck, right? Like they've in many ways hybridized themselves. But I think the reason that Amulet has come up ahead, even regardless of Urza Saga, is Amulet is the very, very, very broken piece of this conversation between these two decks. And it just became more and more apparent. And now with Urza Saga being able to just like guaranteed you're going to have Amulet on turn 3, the turn that matters in play no matter what, without spending mana on it that turn, means that just the deck is that much more consistent.
And you fetched at least once, because that's how Magic works in Modern, and you are dead.
So I really want to make sure that we spend enough time talking Horizons today. So I'm actually going to move us along, because that conversation about sort of what's going to be added to the format that's going to combat these top decks, I think is a really interesting one for us to have. And there's been a lot of articles, a ton of content creators. I mean, this is a topic that a lot of people have been discussing. You and I have loosely discussed this now on several shows, but I think this is going to be sort of treated as our formal discussion. And
Well, this is going to be our formal early speculation.
prediction.
We're going to talk about this a lot.
Formal early speculation.
Because there's...
Before we get to second speculation, and that's before we have early rumination.
Well, there's going to be...
That's before
And
second
breakfasts.
dinner.
Yeah, we're a bunch of hobbits. So the Hobbit has come out twice this episode. That's 2.
Bilbo. All right, keep talking.
We have the Modern Horizons this episode. We're really reviewing to the announcement. We did like a small, brief discussion of it, but now we're kind of doing predictions. Then when more information comes out and we get closer, there'll be like either during spoilers or the next time they kind of reveal stuff, like archetypes. We'll talk about that, and then there'll be a review, and then there'll be a post.
much tanner when this episode came out.
You're on this subject matter. But we figured we should get this one out of the way.
I mean, there's just so much to say about it, and I think there's a couple different places to start. I think it feels like the most consistent conversation people are having is the counterspell conversation. That's the one that I feel like has come up on here the most. It's the one that I've seen the most people discuss, is which counterspell, which is going to be the marquee counterspell of Modern Horizons, right?
What if there's none?
There was none. Well, there was Force and Negation, which is brand new. But at that time, there was none. Now, in the future, Counterspell's back, baby.
I think there's going to be 2. But what if there's none?
Right, so like, I think let's start there. Let's kind of recap. So your options really are Force of Will, Daze, Counterspell, Flusterstorm, right?
Those are the 4 exciting
Ooh, there
ones.
was
I
Flusterstorm, right?
posted,
Okay.
Memory Lapse was a 5th one that I think people weren't talking
Thank
about.
God
Maybe
it's not
Denial.
Memory
Like,
Lapse.
there's like some medium ones that could be included as a common in the set just to have as part of the limited format. But I think Counterspell seems to be everyone's favorite pick for a lock, though I can see that not being true. I think Daze...
I think that reaction, right? When people were going into this set, that's when they started design on Modern Horizons 2, and Wizards was like, oh, this seems to be the big miss. The points people are making, a lot of the content creators talking about Counterspell being added were really good points, and something that I think would be a good idea to do. Now that we've thought about it and put it out there, the community seems to be all into it. We were a little wary of it, and now let's just do it.
Daze is my least favorite of the 4 you named. I think Flusterstorm
Still
is the
hate Daze.
most lucky. Just from the perspective...
Likely.
not lucky, sorry.
Likely?
Most likely.
Yeah.
Just from the perspective of... It's definitely not too powerful for Modern. It specifically hates on decks that Wizards likes to be hated on in Modern. It's a totally fine card, and it's really just not there because they're never going to print Storm in a standard set. Its non-standard playability is because of the word Storm on the card. And Force of Will is the big haymaker. Now, if they print Force of Will, which I think is possible, that's them That's the statement. That's what makes this set excited for Modern players.
It was.
I can
It was at
see
the set.
Wizards not doing that.
Oh, no, sorry.
Because it
Flusterstorm
could be
was.
bad for the format, though I don't think it necessarily will be. And it truly just depends on Wizards' willingness to make that big of a haymaker. I don't know, sports.
Haymaker.
Oh, I missed that. I miss when we had weird text making fun of me and or Ben. Well, we should bring that back, world. But so it's interesting here because Counterspell has come back now. Modern Horizons 2. Flusterstorm was printed in the set, and they didn't bring in Force of Will, but they did bring in Force of Negation, which is fixed Force of Will and is one of the most played cards in the format.
That big of a haymaker. Wizards' version of a haymaker because they're
Let's make Hailmaker happen.
wizards, not farmers. And
So, okay.
hey, farmers.
As far as Hailmaker.
It's a sports reference? Is it a sports thing?
So, like, what I think is like, okay, if you're talking those
Hailmaker needs to be a card.
four main ones. So let's say you're throwing out Memory Lapse, you're throwing out Arcane Denial, Foil.
There might be some cool like side version of a card.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
At common, we're not like there's 4 counterspells. I don't think they can get away with more than 2.
Misdirection or something. Like, there's a card you could get printed, but like most of those are not going to make a massive impact.
All right, let's look it up. I should have looked up Modern Horizons before we started doing this. Modern Horizons, we are going to look up counter target, and there was Flusterstorm, Prohibit, counter target spell. Prohibit was in the set. Archmage's Charm, Exclude, Force of Negation, Spell Snuff, which is just we'll never see him play, and Spell Snuff. That's the counter spells of the set.
Where I think the interesting conversation here is it goes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing to say, because this is key information, in the live stream, they said
3
that the best
relevant
card
ones.
Is a
in the
blue
set
card,
is a
right?
blue card. So we don't know what card it is, but they're like, oh, you're talking about maybe revealing these cards, and this one, there's this one blue card we were really excited to reveal. And like, well, we shouldn't reveal the best card in the live stream that we're announcing it. That is the information we have. That's why Force of Will is brought up so often.
And that's
So it's either Force of Negation or Urza, right? Do you? I guess Force of Negation is the most likely card they were talking about, but Urza is the most likely card to get banned?
why the conversation has been so centered around, I think, counterspells and then to some degree brainstorm. So what I was basically saying was that if you focus on those 4 counterspells, there are kind of specific reasons that each one is significant for this set, but also why I think they wouldn't be in the set, right? So I think the card Counterspell is a card that they have talked about considering for standard before. They've talked about it over the years. Is there a
almost a
standard
common
environment they
area.
can print that card into that would be relevant? And I think you want to make sure that you're keeping some marquee reprint cards as possibilities for standard sets. Of these cards and of the really powerful counterspells that exist, that is the most basic, staple, standard counterspell you could print if you wanted to have a set that was really headlined by a counterspell. So in my opinion there's a decent chance that like you get some mileage out of the other ones. I think you could hold off on counterspell if you're Wizards here, and even save it for Modern Horizons 2 if you wanted to. Maybe.
Prediction on Ben's credit, that's exactly what happened.
Maybe, and you maybe coincide with a standard printing, unless there's a standard printing coming soon, which I don't think there is.
Counterspell is the most boring while also being the most exciting option, where like the other ones are all different from that.
So secondly, I think Force of Will, as
True.
I've said before, I don't think would be that powerful in Modern. It would be great. Like,
It would be good, it would be fine.
it would be good. There aren't that many decks in Modern you need to generate card disadvantage to keep up. There's a few, but not that many. And so I don't think that card disadvantage as like your A plan that excites you in your opening hand is as significant as it is in Legacy, where you can catch back up and you kind of need it. Also, I think it makes it so close to Legacy. If they print Force of Will into Modern, it's them making that clear statement of, this is just going to be Legacy, and we're doing everything we can to make it Legacy.
So I had this conversation with Michael. I think there are 3 defining cards in Legacy, and I think every other card is not as defining to the format as those 3.
Wasteland, Brainstorm, Force of Will.
Yes, good.
Yes.
You won.
Yeah.
Here's a dice thing.
People who listened to last week's episode had a cheat sheet.
This is prize. Is there anything inside? No.
I was hoping to find like 8 foil spell skites or something.
But
Holding cards.
the Brainstorm and Wasteland, I think, are more definitive. Like, they sculpt Legacy into being what it is.
Yep.
Where I think Force of Will is more of a necessary evil of the format, in the sense that the older that Magic becomes, the more you need a hard safety valve on, and
Yeah.
Force of Will is very good at that. And it is pretty fair. Like, yes, it's problematic. I don't think it's ever standard viable because I think in that format it's problematic. But like without Brainstorm in the format especially, you don't have with fetch lands ancestral visions. At instance, you're like that's not available to you. So the card advantage as you mentioned is problematic. And the one comment people have about Modern, that's their biggest complaint, is it's just a lot of linear decks that have big, powerful things that you can't stop. And for a long time, Thoughtseize was able to do that, and Inquisition of Kozilek, and now we're getting to a point where they're not able to kind of compete with the decks that are doing it, especially since so much of them are graveyard themed, that having a Force of Will type card added to the format is possibly something that would be really good for it.
Or Band Faith Exploding. One
beyond
single
those two,
tier.
you mentioned that the most exciting.
So this is an interesting conversation still, right? Is like and more so because they printed Force Negation. Is the format better if you have a choice between Force Negation and Force Will? I mean, Force Will becomes just the de facto option. Force Negation goes away. It adds a huge price barrier to the format. Force Negation becomes more of the 5th and 6th card of that. Now you still play that. I think Legacy is playing all 6. I think it's worse. Now I think with Force Negation in the format, we're just never going to see Force of Will, though I do agree with my previous self that Force of Will would be fine to have added, but now it is unnecessary.
And the most likely for you is Flusterstorm, with the other option being Daze. So let's compare those two, because I think while Counterspell is sort of the most boring,
I think Daze is the least likely. I would actually be unhappy if Daze was added to Modern.
Called it.
It's fine. That's where you and I disagree. I've talked about this. Sure. I actually think Daze is the one of these counterspells I would like to see the most. Daze is the counterspell that I think works the best in Modern, just simply for its interaction with Shocklands. I think it creates enough of a disadvantage to doing that in a format where it's already a disadvantage to start at 17 that I really do think maybe you get some super mono bluey tempo decks or like.
But Death Shadow exists. Like there's enough formats where paying life into it is actually a value to the format, and I feel that the feel bads on Daze are so much worse than the other two. Counterspell you can see coming. Force of Will, they lose a life and they discard a card. So there's a lot of cost to Force of Will happening. And it's bad on the front end. Like countering a spell for 5 minutes is bad. Dazing someone for 2 is fine. And the feel bads that happen around Daze, and it just encourages people to play with 1-drops. Like it makes whoever's playing Daze only want to play with spells that cost 1. Force of Will is good with Jace the Mind Sculptor. Force of Will is good with 4-drops because it makes it so you want to discard these more expensive cards, which means that you get a larger variety of playable threats versus Daze. The only deck that plays Daze in Legacy are Merfolk and Delver. And I don't even think Merfolk plays Daze. I think it's just Delver.
So I still agree with this. I think Daze would be a huge net negative. I mean, like imagine the world where Daze and Dragon Rage Channeler and Ragavan are all in the format together. I can't imagine that. It's called Legacy. It's bad for fun.
So then maybe, and
Good
what you're saying is that you think it's the worst, not because it's the most like parasitic, but you're thinking it's the worst because it's the least exciting.
No, I think it is the least fun of those four cards to be added. I think it is the worst from a gameplay perspective, and I think they're all comparable on power. I think Flusterstorm is less powerful than the other 3. I think the main 3 are comparable in power level in different ways.
That's why Flusterstorm to me, while you say is the most likely, and maybe you're right, is the one that I would be the most disappointed to see printed because
it's taking up the counterspell slot of one.
Yeah,
I was right.
It's a marquee card that I don't think really moves the needle for me.
And Storm isn't really a thing consistently in Modern.
Oh, but it's good against.
Where Flusterstorm would really shine against.
It's good against other decks. It's good. I mean, it's really good against Phoenix, but like,
yeah,
it's just in general. Yes,
okay against Phoenix.
It's the safest to print, and like I can see them not blinking about printing Flusterstorm in a set. And I don't know if they want to print both Counterspell and Force of Will. That seems extreme. I think they would print Force of Will and Flusterstorm, or Counterspell and Flusterstorm. So that's more. I don't think you get both. I think that's not.
I think we can skip ahead because we probably talk about this a lot.
It's about as good as Spell Pierce, honestly. Like they don't have that many lands usually.
Sure,
it's fine.
It's better than Spell Pierce because it hits on Storm and
it's a little. I mean, I'm just saying against.
Phoenix shouldn't be kept into mind. I don't think any cards that make Dredge better are going to be printed, but I think Phoenix is one that they.
Ooh, missed that one because Hogak was printed. So Dredge decks got really good. They also printed a second Dredge card. We got the red Dredge card.
Had no idea. So there's probably good blue-red cards that make that deck better in this set. But Daze seems miserable to play against if it's in Phoenix.
Days or no days, and we didn't really address the banning conversation. I mean, there's just so much of it, but days or no days, if Phoenix continues putting up the results like it's putting up and these percentages, it will be banned before this set releases, probably.
Well, what does it will be banned mean? Does it mean that
faithless looting will get banned?
So I don't think Phoenix dies. Phoenix is the
Ooh, okay, I was wrong. Well, Phoenix didn't die. Phoenix is still around, but Phoenix is significantly worse. And they did ban faithless looting.
best deck. There has been one of the best decks in Standard for the last year, and it doesn't have faithless looting.
I think if you put days in and you remove faithless looting, the deck becomes a lot more fair. Like, that's so far and away the card you see in your opening hand, you're just like, I can't lose.
You just play Cathartic Reunion. I don't know. I think the deck's fine. I mean, like, obviously it is
So
worse.
wrong.
Like, faithless
Cathartic
sweet
Reunion
Reunion
summer
really-
child.
thing too is you're not drawing the cards before.
I'm not
so-
saying the deck doesn't get worse without faithless looting.
Yeah.
I'm saying the deck still is probably one of the best decks in the format.
100%.
But
You're wrong.
on the banning conversation,
Sorry-
because I don't
sorry,
want to
past Alex.
Alex. One thing on it. Wizards isn't going to ban anything until after Modern Horizons comes out.
Okay.
That was true. And then they banned a lot. They've banned a lot since then. You don't even know what War this part. You don't even know about Karn and Mycos Lattice.
Unless the Pro Tour top 8 is 8 mono Phoenix decks, like,
Or 8 dredge decks.
and at that point they might decide that the mulligan rule is problematic. Before the mulligan rule test, we said this last week.
Yeah.
The point of this Pro Tour is to be a experiment. They are testing a thing. You don't take the data set you have leading up to that experiment and see if it gets better and like change it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Then the test doesn't work.
So that's true. So for those who don't know, the Mulligan rule changed, and Modern was the test Pro Tour for that, or that through that process. It used to be you draw up the 7 cards, then you mulligan, and then when you're done mulligan, you scry one. They changed that to the current rule, and I do think the current rules, like literally, it's in the pudding, right? Like literally, this is March 22nd. Magic is fine. War of the Spark comes out. London Mulligan rule is implemented after Grand Prix London or Pro Tour London, and Magic has not been fine since then. Games are more exciting to watch, but yeah, it's interesting how that was the big, like, this era of Magic coincided with this rules change so thoroughly that I don't think it gets enough credit for how attached that was and how important that change was.
All right, so the counterspell conversation we've had. That's an important one.
Nice.
Let's move on to the next piece of the
Do you
conversation.
think Wasteland is printable in Modern?
No, all right.
Do you think Brainstorm is printable in Modern?
No.
Cool. But do you think Force of Will is?
I think Force of Will you could get away with, because I don't think Force of Will, like, it changes the way the format is played, but it doesn't make me feel like it changes it doesn't change the way the format is played where that card is proactively good. Mm-hmm. It's just reactively good.
I guess my point is, of the 3 defining cards of Modern or of Legacy, it is the one card that I would say there aren't decks about. There are not many Force of Will decks. There are Brainstorm decks. There are tons of Wasteland decks.
The other thing I don't love about Force of Will getting printed into Modern, and I think unless they're going to print Modern Horizons to the moon, we had a reprinting on Force of Will semi-recently. The card
Oh, weird. I don't know why the audio got different.
is not legal in Modern, and the card is
Better.
still $75 per.
But it wasn't until they announced Modern Horizons. It was.
It was over 50. I mean, it's.
Yeah, but there are $100 cards in Modern that exists.
I'm saying if you implement a new counterspell that a bunch of decks are going to want 4 ofs in the most.
And now they are Enchantress cards, Liliana of the Veil, and everyone's favorite monkey.
Popular format that isn't standard. I really do genuinely think that Force of Will is going to be a $100 card, and it's going to be a 4 of counterspell in the decks that want it, and it just increases the price of your deck because of the sideboard in a lot of cases by $400. It's like unless they're going to really print this thing into the ground, it's just kind of like, I don't love that. It doesn't make me super excited.
Oh, this is foil.
Yeah, it's been expensive for a while.
380 for the last 5 years.
But if Force of Will's in the set, it's a big statement, and so we'll keep our eyes open for that. So moving on to the next part of the conversation.
Well, that's something I want to talk about, actually, because that's I think more relevant to bring up here as
The
a segue.
cost?
Is just cost of cards. I think any card that is playable in Modern that gets printed in Modern Horizons becomes more expensive.
I think so.
Yep. Reprints weren't, interestingly enough, but that's because the new cards were so powerful.
Too. I think so too. But you know what's weird? What was the last time they printed prior to Ultimate Masters Noble Hierarch? It was I think it was Modern Masters 92, so it was a few years prior. And after the reprinting of that card, it went on to be like a $90 plus card for years.
But
and
the difference is between Noble. Oh, sorry. Finish your sentence, and I'll tell you what.
like you do see eventually these cards will come down in price if they continue to print them enough. Like I was just telling Marshall before the show, you can buy a foil Noble Hierarch from Ultimate Masters right now for $47. I think you can buy a regular one for about 40. Like it was 95 for the last couple of years. So the price is in half because of a reprinting, and that is one of the most played cards in one of the most high demand formats. Like as a
It was
foil.
in Ultimate Masters.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Prior to that though, the last printing.
15.
How much is a non-foil one in Ultimate Masters?
It's like 40. It's like a couple dollars less.
I would bet
So the foiling process only adds $5.
People hate the foils from Ultimate Masters. This is a pro tip, guys. If you're looking to buy foils that long term you're going to be stoked you bought, buy Ultimate Masters foils, because for some reason the differentiation between a regular card and a foil card is such that players have convinced themselves that owning the foil from Ultimate Masters is not that special. I'll give you another good example. I just bought a foil Raging Ravine from Ultimate Masters for $6. A regular Raging Ravine from World Wake goes for $12. Like at that, if
You're
you
not that much off though. From
do you think it's
people also hate Modern Masters too, like because it has that waxier print because it was on the paper packs.
yeah.
I'm looking up most expensive cards in Modern or Ultimate Masters because I think that's super relevant. You have Liliana the Veil, who is now 90. Mana Vault is 70. Cavern of Souls is 74. Snapcaster Mage is 64. Ulamog, Kozilek are both 60. Phyrexian Altar is 60. Bitter Blossom is 50, which is fascinating because that got reprinted in a Secret Lair. Ancient Tomb is 50. Mikaeus is 40. Emrakul is 50. Demonic Tutor is $35 there, which is an interesting one because that's actually pretty cheap. Karakas is 30. Tarmogoyf is 32. What happened to my boy? Karn Liberated is 24. Balefire Dragon is 30. Let's see. Raging Ravine is not even up here. Temporal Manipulation is 18. Entomb is 20. Noble Hierarch is $16 now. So that's dropped a lot. But that's partially due to playability. Yeah. So interesting. All right. Keep going.
Went down. The difference between Noble Hierarch getting printed in this set and Force of Will, for instance, or any new card getting printed is there was already a large population of Modern players that owned copies. That needed them to play. When right now, if you've played Modern since the beginning, you have never needed to own Force of Will at no point in that career. And tomorrow, or once this set prints, if Force of Will is in it, you either need to open it as a mythic in this set, or go get one. And that's a much more difficult thing. And I think Force of Will is an extreme example. And this is obvious. I mean, I agree with you. I think this is the best argument against why it's not going to be in this set. But there are cards, even at common and uncommon, that people just won't have playsets of. I think commons will be fine, but if there's like Wirewood Symbiote is at uncommon, I think that card goes up. I think instead of being whatever it is now, say it's $5, it'll be a $10 card.
I mean, we've seen this happen many times. Anytime there's been a modern, like the Modern Master sets, each one of them, the cards have gone down and then back up. It ultimately increases the price of the cards being printed, and that's before even what you're talking about, which is a different issue entirely.
Like they go up regardless, and sometimes they go up more partially because like, oh, I opened up one Tarmogoyf. I need to buy 4 of them to be able to play with the first one I bought. Now I have to buy 3 more.
So I'm going to go kind of through here and throw out some other cards. I think the next category is cards that have been printed into non-modern formats. So like Commander, Plane Chase, Conspiracy, cards like that. Cards that have been legal in Legacy and Commander, but have not been legal for Modern. Seeing reprints of those cards. Now, the first one that comes to mind for a lot of people is Baleful Strix. And there's been a lot of conversation about...
So the most expensive card before we get into Baleful Strix is Altar of Dementia for Modern Horizons 2, and it's $6. And it's the most expensive reprint in the set. After that, there is... Kess is the next, and it's $2. So wrong there.
Baleful Strix.
You know who is totally off Baleful Strix?
Chaz? I know. I read his article about it, and it's interesting that he says that. And his reasoning is that it blanks creature decks so completely that printing Baleful Strix into Modern just like changes the gameplay so completely that it's not a reasonable print for the format.
My
You
response
did
to
get
that is look creature
Ice Fang
decks.
Codal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Tarmogoyf is worth $40, like down from $150. It's like
26.
And that's
20.
a deck that probably can get around. Like, are we talking about zoo decks? Are we talking about burn? Like, what deck is attacking with creatures that Baleful Strix is good against versus
It blocks Phoenix all day, man.
block one? This is like kind of my like. Yes, they might want creature decks to be better, but like
It
creature
blocks
decks
Mantis Rider.
will like get around that, and the decks that don't good, like think about when they were making this. Humans was the best deck in the format, and if Baleful Strix is good against humans, then I think that's a net positive from Wizards' side.
I don't actually think about this card as a card that would be problematic. If this card gets printed into Modern, you can bet that I will absolutely on day one be calling you endlessly about a Grixis Vexing Devil Claim Fame Baleful Strix deck, and it will exist immediately. It will be so sweet. Being able to claim Fame of Baleful Strix is all I've ever wanted to do in Modern. I will be sleeving it up and taking it to the first, just bringing it to the office, just to make you look at
You
it.
don't want to just
The deck
have
does sound really
Tezzeret just
sweet.
Make it into a 5/5.
I'll build all the decks.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
I'll
seems
build
sweet.
Tezzeret deck.
I'm into
I
this.
love Tezzeret.
Well,
So
I
I
actually
think Baleful Strix is an interesting one. Containment Priest is another card that kind
I would add Baleful Strix. I think that would be a net benefit for Modern now. Well, not net benefit, but I think that card would be dope. Containment Priest is in Modern now, but what set? How did it get in there? M21. They just printed an M21.
of fits the same bill.
I think
feels
Containment Priest is probably my highest pick for a lock.
yeah
was
feels pretty
not
darn
in
likely.
it.
It's really good for the format.
Some of you guys probably don't know these cards. Containment Priest is a card. It's white, 1 white for a 2/2 flash. When it enters the battlefield. If a creature would enter the battlefield from somewhere other than a hand, it's exiled. Is that what it is? Or if it's
If it
from the
wasn't
graveyard?
cast.
If you didn't cast it, it doesn't.
Non-token,
it
right?
exiles.
I believe it is non-token because Hallowed Moonlight specifically doesn't say non-token,
Yeah.
so we can snatch.
And it's a bear. And I think on that,
What if they print a second version of it and that is just not a human?
I mean, that might be smart.
Has
and
seen minimal
it's
play,
possible that,
which is
like,
interesting.
yeah, maybe.
You kind of forget that it's in the
But
format.
I think that card's pretty likely. But what about any of the powerful tutors, the old Visions tutors, like Worldly
I don't think any of them get
Tutor,
printed. I don't think Wizards wants any
Enlightened
tutors.
Tutor, Mystical Tutor?
If Green Sun Zenith is too good, then Worldly Tutor's too good.
What about
I guess it doesn't
them?
put into play, and there's other issues. But like I think all tutors under 3 mana, Wizards is not like itching to put into the format.
You don't think the marquee
Profane Tutor is the only tutor of any variety that Modern Horizons has added. Not any variety, but of like a famous level quality of tutor.
printing, the card that would blow everybody's mind, is them printing Imperial Seal into Modern Horizons?
Yeah, that would be bad.
A 1 mana
I
black
don't think that will happen.
sorcery speed vamp tutor?
Yeah, I think that would.
Half the decks in the format play Thought Scour already? Like, I don't know.
I think that would be bad for the format.
But that is interesting that Thought Scour can counter that and Worldly Tutor.
I think that's like a cute interaction, but not an interaction that Wizards would be like, it's okay to print a Vampiric Tutor, a card that is banned in Legacy.
I mean, it's not instant speed, so it's significantly worse. And it's also
Still-
a $500 card. So
Right. So this is
At some
Force of Will
point,
problem we
they're-
just talked about, but
no, at
10
a
times
certain, but at a
worse.
certain point, they're going to find a place to print that card.
They have it's a Judge problem.
They're going to put it into a set at a certain point.
Yeah, but now I don't think they're going to put it in
Modern Horizons, yeah, maybe.
like Modern Horizons, because of that choke point thing we talked about, can't have any card like that.
Yeah.
It would break the set in half. It would become problematic in a way that would make the set a failure, and Wizards is not dumb
Okay.
to do that. But I do think on the tutor conversation, Wishes
They
have
weren't.
a higher chance of being put into it.
That's interesting. Yeah, Cunning Wish. Cunning Wish would be a really interesting printing because Glittering Wish has been a good card, but never a dominant card.
Right.
And like, it's not like the other wishes are really that different.
We just
In
got
fact, they
regular
cost
Wish,
3 in
which
a lot
is
of cases,
better
right?
than the old Wishes
Well-
because you don't put it in your hand. Well, you have to play that till end of turn, so it's a little
Cost
different.
3. Golden Wish costs 5 or something.
And Golden Wish costs 5 because they were so afraid of it.
Yeah. Because what does it get?
Gets artifact or enchantment.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the wishes are interesting. What about some draw spells? Actually, you know what? No. Let's talk about some. These are a couple cards. Some.
I think they could still add the Wishes. I think it's still possible. It's like design space they obviously like going into, and a Modern Horizons that would be a perfect place to do it since it's not a commander focused set. It would also make commander players happy or non-commander players happy because the whole like commander masters.
Red and blue spells that are like cheaper. Fire Ice is one that comes to mind.
That was
Sure.
added Modern
I can see Fire
Horizons
and Ice
too.
being said. I
Good
think the
prediction,
biggest
Ben.
limitation to Fire Ice is, are there going to be double cards?
Right.
Yes.
Like I think that
a lot.
this set
Well,
is
I
meant to
don't-
be advanced, but it is also meant to be somewhere in between a Masters set and a Battle Bond, and that's a set that has a little bit of a lower skill barrier to entry. They don't want it to be Masters, and so
Did one have any double face cards? I don't know if it did. I'm trying to think. 2 definitely did. With that in mind, having one-off mechanics show up at common or uncommon becomes problematic.
That's fair.
Double face cards are just in the recent set. Could be totally fine. Like I think that's possible, but something to keep in mind in general is the more complicated a mechanic, the less likely I think it is, unless it doesn't matter. Like they could print a arcane spell. They aren't because they're all legal and modern.
Getting back to the conversation from just a second ago about cards from these expansion sets that have not been modern legal.
Oh, this is the Mevo. Oh, we had a camera that was like a special streaming camera that we bought that was called a Mevo, and on an iPad while it was recording, you could zoom in on different camera angles on each of us as we were talking, and that's what Marshall is using. Okay, that's how it was zooming. It was cool because it was like a bird's eye lens, so it was able to like modify the angle it was looking at, making it look like you had a multicam. It was a really cool piece of technology. It had a lot of issues. It created also this like weird fishbowl lens look that you have, but I missed the Mevo.
Dak Faden.
I wonder where that is.
By the way, Dak Faden is the best blue-red ever card.
Save that for our
Dak
episode.
Faden is the best blue-red card ever printed.
Yeah, I was in total
I wonder if we
agreement
ever
when you
did
said
the
that
Is
to me
It.
the other
I
day.
don't think we ever
Michael
did the Is It
decided
episode
Disneyland,
on that.
We were trying to go over them.
So-
we have some other picks that are spicier, but that one was like very obvious.
So Dak Faden's interesting, right? Because
Is that
like,
true anymore?
Dak Faden makes Phoenix better because it's really good at double loots. It doesn't.
I'd be
It's not
down for
really
Dak
fast
Faden,
enough to make
like,
Phoenix that much better,
for
and
sure.
But it's really good. It's not an instant or sorcery. It makes artifact decks that are playing artifacts proactively worse, but there's not that many of those. There's like the few prison decks and like so, and then just
I think it's fine. I think the biggest problem with Dak Faden is it's a planeswalker, and how much planeswalkers are there
That's
going
true.
to be? How many of those
True.
slots do they want to waste on reprints? And he is the best reprint one because all the other ones are either walkers or Kaya. Kaya's the other one that they might include because she's just a big face. Or 3 Duretti. You're right. Those are the 3.
we also
Because the other ones are have commander pretext. Yeah.
Brea.
Well, she could be printed. I don't think she. Well, she could. I think actually. So if that's the card I'm most excited about.
Brea?
No, Kess.
Oh, yeah.
Descendant
Kess
Mage.
would be amazing.
Yes,
She's actually
called it.
She's
Called
not
it.
as much of a
Yes.
lock to me as
Hype.
Containment Priest, but I'm really high on her. Also because of hopefulness for all the obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But
And we previewed it. I have
she
a
has
giant
problem
printed out
right now
version
where
of it
she
again.
Can't be played in Eternal formats easily because there's no non-foil printing.
That's something that's true. So for a while, the only printing of Kess was the Commander Precon version, which was foil, so it would curl. And so one of my thought processes for why I thought it was going to be in the set, not just because I wanted it to be, because obvious reasons, was that Kess it was like a way for them to get paper printing in it because it was seeing legacy play, which is fascinating that Kess was seeing legacy play for a while and then just like has never seen modern play. And it's almost exclusively because Potter and Preordain and Brainstorm were legal, and Force of Will, because Force of Will lets you discard Kess and those 3 cards let you play it. So Kess is a much more powerful card in Legacy than it is in Modern because you just don't have that many good cantrip 1-drop spells you want to play.
So she warps. So we talked about last week if you have a damaged card, what you can do.
Both
is ask
Brea
the judge.
and Kess.
Neither of them have a non-foil printing.
Right.
So all of those cards that are playable Brea is less of an issue. There's not a legacy deck playing Brea. Kess has legacy decks playing it. That's the difference. So like this card, people can't play with easily in legacy because it is warping. And so having a non-foil printing, and it's a spell I think is fine. I don't think Snapcaster Mage is a 4-drop every other turn in Grixis is like, that's exactly the type of strategy I think Wizards probably wants more of.
So I think the most powerful blue-red card that we mentioned it in Magic history is actually, which is weird to say, but it might be Expressive Iteration. Expressive Iteration is just like seeing modern play, seeing standard play, like sees some amount of legacy play. Like I'm going through cards that were printed since then, and I don't think there's anything that comes close to those. Maybe the command, Prismari command is like maybe in contention. I don't think there's another good option, which is interesting.
Kess, make it happen.
What about
I
any
did.
of the
I manifested that.
the
You're welcome,
Confluence
past
cycle
Kess.
from Commander? Mystic Confluence being, I think, the best. Fiery Confluence.
none of
These are all possible.
I don't like neither of them
High
got
casting
printed
cost
in.
enough in the 2 most powerful ones that it's not that unlikely.
I don't think the black or the green one come out. I think the white, red, or blue one all have a chance, with the blue one being the most likely, other than the fact that we just talked about how they don't
maybe that's too many counterspells.
You don't think the black one? I feel like the black one is so
I don't
close
think they
to
do
play.
a whole cycle of them. I think that's really pushing a cycle of rares just on that cycle, and the black ones, unless they're uncommons, that'd be cool.
They could be
sweet.
in modern
Unlimited.
if they were downshifted to uncommon.
Well,
I mean,
doesn't matter in modern. The rarity doesn't matter. It's just in the set.
for the sake of drafting Mystic Confluence as an
That sounds
uncommon in that
dope.
format
Really sweet.
is the most bonkers thing I've ever heard.
Or,
I agree with
or
this
the
move.
black one. I mean, the black one is neg 2, draw a card and lose a life, and raised it. So it's basically just big Colligans,
The
man.
reason I don't think they would be included is not from a power level perspective. It's from a boring perspective.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
I
like a
think
little
they're fine. I
little
think the
too
green one is
predictable.
boring. I think it's bad even. But like, why waste a rare spot on a card no one really cares about? Yeah, but I like the idea of putting them at uncommon. Like disagreeing with past self. I think that would be really, really fun for the limited format. I think it would be cool to have all of them in modern. What do you guys think about? Well, so the one thing we haven't talked about is tribal, because I think that's also something that people are really expecting.
And there are a lot of
really
tribal
high
spells.
on goblins, just being they've already been kind of pushing it. There's 3 big goblin cards:
Lackey, Matron.
Matron, and Ringleader.
Yep.
One of
Ringleader's
those-
legal already, isn't it?
No,
No. It got a
One of those got in, right? Or did that get in like semi recently? Goblin. All right, looking that up. Let's see. All right, we got Goblin Champion, Ignoble Hierarch, Goblin Archaeomancer, Goblin Bombardment, Goblin Engineer, Goblin Oriflame, Munitions Expert, Putrid Goblin, Goblin Matron was in it. So there we go. Okay. Shot Call, Pashlix Mons, Ward Eye Witch, Goblin Trap Runner, Goblin War Party, Sling Gang Lieutenant is a big deal. And and Sling Gang Lieutenant. Okay. All right. I see you, Goblin Matron. And his Ringleader is now in modern, right? Set modern Goblin Ringleader. It is. What's collection? Where was it printed? Oh, was it in Modern Horizons 2 as well? No. Oh, it was in M20. It was in M20. Okay, so of these 3, Goblin Lackey is the only one that is not
recent
legal in modern.
reprinting with new art in one of the dual decks, but
got
it is
it.
not.
Okay.
And so all 3 of those.
And we don't think Recruiter would be reprinted.
That's the one where you get the
Stack your deck?
Yeah.
No.
Because that just takes so long to process.
Deck's like,
Isn't it banned?
I think it's banned in Legacy.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, and I think it's bond for time consideration.
It doesn't work with how Tournament Magic wants to.
The last printing of that card, I think, was like 6th edition. I don't think it's been printed.
Really cool.
Yeah.
The art's but yeah, I think all those are possible. I think Elves has some chance. Like people are really high on Wirewood Symbiote. That's what I'm pretty excited about.
Yep.
Didn't
any
happen.
of the 2 mana, either the one that makes it for Forest or how many Elves you have.
Oh, but
What are they?
the other
two
one did.
legendary.
Priest of
Raphaelos
Titania and
Priest of
Raphaelos.
Titania, either of
I don't
those.
think you can print
Rofellos
Raphaelos.
is on the reserve.
He's on the
Cool.
reserve.
So Prince of Titania would be an exciting one. Prince of Titania would be a high swing. Like we want
Yeah.
Elves to be much better. I think Wildwood Symbiote is just a fair include. That would be really cool.
Interesting about Priest is she gets really wild. If Elves becomes a thing, she's crazy in the mirror because she adds mana equal to the number of Elves in play.
That's cool.
So it's a race for you both to
So we got Corian Ranger, which is a really good choice. And that's the only like real elf tribal-y option. Lonus Cryptologist, Treat Ambusher is not like a thing. Neither is Deepwood Denizen. Lana War Tribe was like a cool joke. Rift Sower is just fine. Yeah, Tireless Provisioner, but like not because of elf stuff. Yeah, interesting that the only real like relevant elf creature from a card type in either the Modern Horizons is Quarian Ranger. Partially because I think Elves just doesn't need as much help as Goblins does, right? Like they wanted to print a cool Goblin cards, and they've definitely pushed to get that to be a playable deck in the format. But Quarian Ranger is definitely the big ad for Elves amongst all the cards.
get to
There's
your
also
Priest.
reason I think she might not be printed or like a preset type. Yeah.
Another tribal card that I think is highly likely is Carrion Feeder.
Ooh, good call,
Yes.
Ben.
I don't know if I would call that tribal, but I think Carrion Feeder
It's
is
a
probably on
zombie.
my list of. Yes, but
think about that card.
I don't think zombies will be a draftable archetype in the set. I don't. Think,
Oh, you mean tribal from the perspective of them designing limited? I was thinking
I
like
think we
how.
get 4 goblins tribal cards like that. The only way they put those in the set is if you can draft goblins. Carrion Feeder will be in the set, but you don't need any other zombies to
And
make that
Carrion
card work.
Feeder single-handedly makes modern zombies a deck because like just Carrion Feeder and Blood Artist together, or not Blood Artist, sorry,
Vampire.
Gravecrawler. Just those 2 cards together alone is like already close to good enough.
Maybe. I do think Carrion Feeder added to the format adds a lot of really cool options to the format.
Yeah, so zombies, not a thing that ever happened. But broken things using Gravecrawler and Carrion Feeder and Hogax and Vengevines, broken. things. So broken.
I don't think it necessarily makes like zombies isn't the first place I would go, but I think like it's a great card to have in the format.
Undead
That's,
Augur
I
is
think, also
cool.
what they're going to try going for. They're looking to make strategies that are on the borderline of good and modern better. Goblins is a great example.
Do you think we get like
sacrifice aristocrat tokens decks are another one that I think.
Do you think we get like a sweet zombie or vampire lord at 2 mana? Like a
only if vampire and zombies are tribally supported and limited. Like you don't put lords like that unless
Fun fact, because of the tribal mechanic, all of the tribes were supported and limited.
It's possible to build those. I think if they're going to do it, goblins and elves are the most likely
Zombie
ones to do that
Augur.
with. I don't think, that's kind of my one theory. Like Wired Wedge Symbiote might not be included.
Sure.
It's like
We got both. We got Cordial Vampire for vampires. We got Zombie Augur for zombie augur. We got a bunch of stuff for the most recent set. Yep. We got these.
elves is less
These
likely. I think
happened.
goblins is my highest.
We got a lord for
What's
both
your
of them.
thought? So Wasteland is too strong. So
Yep.
we're going really quick because we only have 2 minutes left.
No, we can-
Wasteland
we'll-
is
yeah.
really strong.
Yep.
What about Rishon?
We only have 2 minutes left. We have.
I think you can play Port because Modern is a format that's pretty color hungry, and most of it's really good decks. There's almost
Rishon
no
Dockside.
monocolored really good decks. There's like a couple, but they're not the kind of decks that you
Dockhand?
want to play Port
Dockhand.
anyway. So I think you're looking at putting like how many mana denial decks do you really have? Like it would be going into a
Concept of
tempo
one.
deck. Or you try to put it into like some sort of a tempo deck, like a Phoenix deck or something, but like you need your mana in that deck. So that's like spell
All
basically.
the tempo decks want their lands. I think that, I think Rishon. Well, I don't think it's too strong, but it does a really good job of fighting Tron. It does a medium job of fighting Tron, really, because it doesn't get rid of the land.
On that subject, what about Maze of Ith?
Maze of Ith would be.
That would be
I think if Baleful Strix is a problem, partially because it hurts on
Spicy.
creature decks, Maze of Ith might be too.
I
Without
still agree.
Wasteland, maybe Maze of Ith is tough, but on the other hand, Maze of Ith is not a mana producing land. It's a
I think it would be dope to print a 1 mana Merfolk that has Maze of Ith's ability on it. I think the biggest issue with both of these cards is that there isn't Wasteland, and that getting rid of lands is so difficult in the format, and so it'd be scary to print these. But yeah, just print like Maze of Ith on a vampire, or like what's another? Actually, in comments, what creature type 1 mana card does Maze of Ith feel like a inability of that tribe? I'm gonna go Merfolk might be it, like an underwater maze. I feel like it has to be white. If it's white or blue or green, because fog has green has fog, so it could be elves. It could be like a core or something, or humans. That seems weird. Well, yeah, okay. Give me Maze of Ith on a creature, wizards.
spell that you have to play in your land slot.
That isn't an argument for it being bad.
Well, also, I think maybe it's just one of those like, does Modern need a Maze of Ith effect?
Maze of Ith,
Maybe
feels
not.
like
It
Yeah.
needs a Rashad Port or a
Wait,
Wasteland
Like, it needs
variant.
a way to hate on lands better than it currently has, maybe. But I don't think it needs a. I think Rishon Port is the most fair land hate card in Legacy that's possible for Modern that doesn't exist already.
No, okay, another question for you. You mentioned that they don't want
except
less
for
than
one other
3
one.
mana tutors. What about if they were to print Imperial Recruiter and Recruiter of the Guard into
I think those
Modern
are fine.
Horizons?
I think those are totally fine.
So those are the red and the white tutors.
Imperial Recruiter was pre-printed in Modern Horizons too. They did not reprint Recruiter, which is interesting because in some ways Recruiter is the safer card, but it's fine. Imperial Recruiter isn't breaking the format at all. I don't even know if it's seeing real play. It's just a fine card to exist in Modern.
There's guys that are, I think, both 1/1s. The one searches for a creature with power 2 or less. The other searches for a creature with toughness 2 or less.
I don't think both of them are fine, but I think one of them could be fine.
I think you could symmetrically print those into mythic slots in their respective colors.
I think both of them are able to be included, and maybe in multiple sets they would be fine being in Modern at the same time, but I don't think a set would have both.
Okay.
I think that you wouldn't do, I think that you would just pick one and not both.
Although they could have like beautiful diptych art where they're like both rallying in opposite directions.
I'd rather them do that over 2 Modern Horizon sets than the one.
So I think the other cards that I see on here, and this will be speed round because we got about a minute left.
Armageddon.
Never.
It's so weird. What I don't know what the timing was.
Speed round.
Oh
Vindicate,
God,
yes
no
or
way.
no?
Modern
I
Horizons
think
too.
Vindicate's fair.
Happened.
What about Stifle? Yes or no?
No.
I think
No.
it's bad. Force Spike? Yes or no?
Not over the other cards we've discussed, but sure.
Control Magic?
Yes.
Fine.
Boring.
Fine.
Okay.
Fine, though.
Force Spec would be fine.
Innocent Blood?
Trip might be cool.
Love it. I think
Innocent
that would
Blood
be
was
really good
printed
to add
in.
to the format.
It's
I
one of the
put it
cards.
higher.
I think that's one of the cards that I'm the most excited about, actually, that I hope they print. Mishra's Factory?
Printed in.
Non-tribal Mutavault? I think it's fine.
think it's fine. I think it'd be cool to. It's artifact, which has like implications, but
Mother of Runes.
I would think that is
Ant.
a bad idea.
We got a similar
that
version.
is a haymaker. That is a Force of Will style haymaker. If they want creatures to be better, like that is what I can see them doing.
No, they didn't.
I think
Innocent
it is,
Blood is not added, but
but
Mother
I would
Ruins
be
kind of got added.
Shardless
with,
Agent.
Yeah, easy.
I think it's easy.
Shardless
and then
Agent
the last
2.
one that I have to ask you about is actually 2 left.
I think Charlotte's Agent is pretty high on the lock.
Yeah, it's interesting how between Modern Horizons 1 and 2, like if we had done this after Modern Horizons 1, we had like a 30% success rate, it feels like. But if you add Modern Horizons 2, we're like kind of killing it. We're like 9 for 10 on our percentage, like 90% of the time correct.
2 left. Toxic Deluged. I think it's too strong.
Too strong.
Too strong.
And finally, Gamble.
Tutor issue I mentioned before, maybe.
I think Gamble would be
Gamble
the
is the-
haymaker tutor if they wanted to push it, that you could give me Gamble, because Gamble is such high variance that the like decks would try it, and it would have to just go in the like Graveyard Life from the Lomi deck.
What if it's in just Phoenix?
Yeah, that's true. That's fine.
I think
Or
the unfortunate
Storm.
thing is Gamble would help the 2 best decks in the format right now, because I think both Dredge and Izzet Phoenix would be hot on playing
They're not. It's not.
sometimes Demonic Tutor,
Gamble's bad.
sometimes
Yeah, you can't do
Entomb.
that. Yeah.
Storm exists.
Yeah.
Oh,
Any card that makes Storm better, Wizards is going to be very wary of, and Gamble is insane in the modern Storm deck, more so than it is in the Legacy one, where Legacy doesn't have red cards.
Yeah, if Gamble exiled a card from your hand, that they could do. I actually could see them be like Gamble, but it exiles from your hand. I think that's possible.
So some card that
lands.
Psychotog.
Did you guys think if
Oh
there's
yeah, Psychotog would be pretty interesting. What'd you
I
say,
still think
Lance?
Psychotog would be cool.
Do you have any speculation on
That'd be a card I'd like
lands?
to see
If
added.
there's going to be a dual land cycle, either a new
Please
one
predict a
or
Horizon lands.
perhaps a
I'm
future
so hopeful.
site, completed
Situation.
cycle.
I mean, I've always wanted to see the Horizon Canopy cycle get printed into Modern. It's a little amorphous when it comes to
Good
color. I
job,
don't, like,
Ben.
But then again, like green-white's not really supposed to be able to sack lands to draw cards, so I don't think it really matters.
I am unsure if they'll include lands. I think if they'll include lands, they'll be more like Rishon Import. I don't think we'll get a
Cycle.
You're wrong.
It'll be one of the mediocre.
There's a pun.
Uncommon.
Look
like
at the pun.
You can
The
tap for
pun's
1
right
mana or
there.
sack it
It's
for 2 mana of
Horizons,
2 other
Modern
colors,
Horizons, and
uncommons, or-
Horizon Canopy.
Actually, I changed my mind. If I were to pick one, it's the tap fetches.
No,
For
you're-
Mirage.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
the
like a
Mirage
cute
tap.
mana
That'd be
fixture in the
interesting.
middle.
Fixtures
That's
are
fun,
fine.
and it's like a good reference.
And
But
they're like modern-y, so it's like, oh look, it's like modern. You can fetch lands.
You
but
were
they
so
come in
close,
tap, and
friends.
they could be out uncommon or common because I think
You
the
had
set
it.
want mana fixing.
damn, at least Ben
So
Shaw called that at the
one
beginning,
other
but
thing- okay,
missed
so
it.
cards we don't want. Him.
Yeah, bad.
we got Torok though.
Him?
What about Veteran Explorer?
Wait, what's him?
Added.
Him to Turok.
Oh, okay.
Black. Target player discards 2 cards.
No,
at
I
random.
know what guard him to Turok is. You just said him. And I was like, who?
I think him Turok could be bad. Veteran Explorer probably bad.
Powerpuff Girls
It's
reference. Good
basically-
job.
That's the one when it sacks each player.
Veteran
can get 2
Explorer
lands.
would
Is that
be
what it is?
so dope.
That's fine.
Actually, I think that'd be so
Basics.
cool.
It's worse in modern than it is in Legacy.
Yeah, so maybe it's fine.
Yeah, Veteran
figure it
Explorer. Let's make
what do you
that
guys think
happen.
about True Name Nemesis?
Yeah, no way.
Ugh.
Horrible idea.
Speculated
Ugh.
on. I think it's a horrible idea too, but
I think
They're-
anyone
they're-
that puts on their list is doing it for the clicks, so people go in their comments and yells at them. That
They're
would be a good-
definitely
Hey,
not.
yell at me
that.
below. You know what? In fact,
Astral Slide.
I want those clicks. True Name Nemesis should be in Modern. Hot take. It shouldn't. I can't even say that honestly. Astral Slide was a better version of Astral Slide was added. Astral Drift. It's on Kaladesh with family.
ooh, I would love Astral Slide.
Got
I
something
had so much
better.
fun with
Would be a
Astral
thing.
Slide back in the day.
Yeah.
Marshall does have a cool
all right, guys.
cycling modern
Unfortunately,
deck.
that's gonna.
So I asked online if people wanted excited or terrified
Ben,
cards.
Ben wants to go so bad. And I'm like, no, I'm saying more cards.
And Perfuro, someone put, which is interesting. Astral Slide's Dave.
The final card I want you guys to comment on: Fact or Fiction. Is Modern
In it.
ready for it?
Awesome. Yeah. Activation would be great. Not legal.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, I love Fact. I think
Fact or
that's
Fiction would be
possible.
awesome.
That could be the blue card, by the way.
It'd be really good.
Someone brought that up and it was like, it could just not be any of these counterspells people are talking about. Wizards might not want to do that, but Fact or Fiction is like.
Do we think
more
that's what
in line
Wizards
with
thought?
What they would want people to be excited
Interesting.
about.
As
I think it's good.
a recent Mystical Teachings convert, I would love to Mystical Teachings for
Factor
Faster
Fiction is dope, and it's in the
It would
format.
be
It has
really, really good.
very
I don't
minimal
think it
play.
would be too good. I think it would be awesome.
Yeah, it's just fine.
So yeah, I think we'll
Not the
continue
best
to have
card in
more
the set.
conversations about this. We'll have another episode that talks about new cards, and we start to get a little bit better of a sense of what's coming. One thing that I didn't get to talk about at all, and I'm going to talk about it next week, is the fact that I built a SIG deck and went and played a Commander Night with the Command Zone guys since last week, which is not modern friendly, but it is something I did and something
This is the
Alex
beginning of
encouraged
the
me to
fall.
do.
It's the beginning of the
And
fall.
I'm going to talk about it probably next week on the show. So otherwise, thank you guys for watching and listening. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Alex, anything you would like to add before we get
Is
out
that
of here?
just wrap ups? or no, we
Someone
just have
said
like a
that we were
big.
maybe a little off on the chat. Where is it? Brandon Russell is like questioning our comment on Deluge. I think Deluge might actually be fine. He's got a point.
Maybe they print Deluge.
I think the issue
and
with
True Name.
I think the issue with Deluge. I think the problem with Deluge is that
Oh, apparently we did this live. That's interesting.
the reason that even Chaz thinks Baleful Strix is bad is that it's maybe too strong of an anti-creature deck. Now, on the other hand, it does do a good job at kind of shoring up the Dredge matchups and the Phoenix. Like a board wipe that's good against those decks that are now getting like 8/4/4s into play is probably a good thing for the format.
It's Shadow gets to bring it.
Yeah, I was going to say, Death Shadow loves Toxic Deluge because its Shadow lives through it and
I
stuff.
think it's borderline, and I think it is scarier than it is beneficial. I think them printing a different card that's good against, like, pick target toughness, destroy all creatures of that toughness or something that would be cool.
We got that. It is Plague Engineer, and it's creature type. And I thought a lot of tribal deck players think it's ruined their day. So I don't know if it's been a net benefit, but it has helped humans not just be the best deck in the format for a while, though I don't know if they would regardless.
So instead of paying life. Yeah.
No, in fact, I know they wouldn't. Because like it's not seeing that much play. Humans isn't being hated up by Plague Engineer. It's not as good as other decks.
Everything else in the chat. People are really excited about you talking about Commander.
It's gonna next week. We'll do a whole conversation about it. Maybe we can get one of the guys on the phone. I played the games with Josh. Maybe I can get Josh on the phone. That'd be fun.
And we do Monday Night Commander every week. So tonight, if you're watching this right now, we I believe we have some friends from a movie podcast that are joining us. Plus, I believe Tappy Toe Claus or Jason Alt, one or the other, will be on joining us as well.
Except Factor Fiction is too strong for Storm. I think it's expensive enough.
Yeah, it's too expensive.
Doesn't see play in Storm.
I think Storm
was
would play
fun.
it. Like I think they'd play.
I guess they play Gifts actually. So
Yeah,
now,
I think they. But like I don't think it's that much better than Gifts is.
It's worse.
no, it's like it ends up being like a 4-mana pieces of the puzzle in a lot of ways.
and which is fine. I think it's impossible to. That's why Wizards
Pieces of the Puzzle is such a deep cut. I like forgot that card existed.
hate Storm. It's
Yeah.
impossible to just make it so they can't make Storm better. They just eventually will have to print another card.
Magali Villanadu.
If you guys want to follow along with us,
Faithless Looting.
follow along with @the MMcast on Twitter. You can follow me at Ben Bateman Media.
All of that is the
You can follow
same.
him at
That
Kess
hasn't
Wiley.
changed.
And
You know all these.
Marshall, do you have a Twitter?
I do. I'm Marsh Unfocused, or you can follow our podcast production company, Time Traveler Media, at Time Traveler Pod.
Sweet. All right,
Take
guys.
the
we'll
shout
be
out
back same
away,
time, same place
friends.
next week.
None of those are true.
What?
It's never the same place and or at the same time.
All right.
All right, that was it. That was the full episode. Honestly, surprised how well we did. It was if you include both, right? Like, to the extent that maybe Wizards listened to this specific speculation, it being one of our more listened to episodes, and was like, oh yeah, these are the cards that do sound fine. Maybe we will add these in the future. Because we kind of hit 9 for 10. Like, I feel like most things we brought up did happen, or like the things that were just close got like tweaks to make them on creatures, like Hymn to Torok or Rishid Import, and like didn't include Days, but did include Counterspell, didn't include Force of Will because Force of Negation exists, and that like is something we didn't know at the time. But we were kind of like high on Force of Will being a maybe, and Force of Negation did kind of translate into that. Counterspell eventually got printed into it. I think they like didn't like Baleful Strix didn't make it in, but that's because they printed the Snake version at Blue Green. Like Carrion Feeder was a lock, which we got right. We got right on the Goblins. 2 of the 3 got printed into that set, plus the most recent core set, or M21 or M20. Yeah, I think like pretty good.
good job, past Alex and Ben. You definitely also were a little bit more in shape, which now that I need to work on. But I have better sunglasses now. Those sunglasses I definitely broke very quickly after that. But let me know if everyone. So below, final shout outs. We'll be back to our normal, me and Ben hanging out on the podcast next week. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about. I think we're going to try and do a little bit more deck techs. I think that people have really liked that. I do want to talk about Mill and Enchantress specifically, because Mill is obviously started becoming a real thing and is a real threat in the format with the new cards from the Dungeons and Dragons set, and then we have just Enchantress Scythes decks have actually started putting up some numbers as well. So we're interested to talk about both of those. Let us know if there are any other decks you really want us to talk about. We do make sure to follow me on TikTok. I just posted deck text for Commander decks there and some other cool stuff. Make sure to check out our Patreon. It does help make this podcast happen. If you are going to buy cards from TCG Player, click the link below. It really helps. We do have a Discord now. I think it did exist back then, but I didn't know how to use Discord. People are talking about what decks they're playing, posting deck lists, finding games, doing trades. It's really cool. Definitely make sure to check that out as that stuff kind of continues to grow. It's the early time to get in on that. And then make sure to follow us on Twitter. We shouted out a second ago. Just follow on Twitter. And if you are on YouTube, hit that like button, hit subscribe. All those things are really important to help this happen. And yeah, I want to hear your comments. Tell me how wrong I am about True Name Nemesis. Hit that algorithm button all the way up. And thank you so much. And let me know if you want to see more episodes like this. There are other speculation episodes. We did a speculation for Modern Horizon 2. That could be really fun to go watch with Ben maybe next time. Or we could just do this kind of regularly. Maybe listen to some old stuff like with Tom Lapilli when we talked about how they were going to ban Splinter Twin. We could do this. This is a feature that we now have as an idea for an episode, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And thank you so much. Please hit that subscribe button if you've never been here before, and we'll talk to all of you next week.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.